Hi everyone, I am Siti Astea de Barasan, and this is Group 2. In this video, I will discuss one of the topics in ethics, and that is ethical theories of natural law. Throughout this discussion, we might realize the questions that are regards into why killing is wrong, why suicide is wrong, why abortion is wrong, and is it natural to be a homosexual? But before that, in our beliefs, God created our world and all the things that surround us. Thus, we also believe that God created us, the human beings, where we consider that the life He was given to us is a special and valuable gift that we couldn't ask for again. However, Christians like Aquinas believe that God not only created the world, but He also remains intimately involved in it. He believed that God doesn't just create our world and walk away. Therefore, Aquinas argues that God created the world as the goal driven manner, where everything was following strict natural laws to fulfill its specific purpose. But before we go deep into our discussion, let's get to know first who is Saint Thomas Aquinas. Saint Thomas Aquinas was a medieval saint and known as the angelic doctor. He was both a philosopher and a saint, refusing either to lose his faith or mindlessly believe he developed a new understanding in human life. Saint Thomas Aquinas seeks to combine the Catholic Church teaching on the thought of Aristotle's approach in ethics, in which Aquinas built his own thought and developed a system of ethics known as the natural law. But the first to develop this approach to ethics is none other than Aristotle. However, Aquinas' natural law is by far most influential than other theories. So, in order for us to understand about the natural law of Saint Aquinas, kailangan nating magsimula sa kanyang paniniwala tungkol sa Diyos. So, Aquinas' natural law theory is based on the Christian faith, which means naniniwala siya na nilikha ng Diyos ang mundo according to natural laws, whereby life is sustained na kung saan tinutulungan tayo ng Diyos sa pamamagitan ng paglikha sa atin na mayroong instincts or inclinations. So in order for us to perform the actions in which it directs us towards the good. For example, tayo bilang isang tao na mayroong instincts na kung saan kaya nating protektahan ang ating buhay sa mga mapapanganib na sitwasyon. Therefore, Aquinas thinks that the instincts or inclination na ibinigay ng Diyos sa atin ay ang kanyang sariling karunungan or wisdom that He imprinted on us. Thus, God has a written moral law in nature, and He has created all humans with the ability to know what morality is and to recognize what is good and what is evil. Aquinas thought na ang moralidad daw ay mahalaga para sa lahat at ang pagiging mabuting tao ay isang mahalagang bahagi ng plano ng Diyos para sa bawat isa sa atin. So, the basic idea of natural law theory is that reason is the source of the moral law and it directs us towards the goods, in which, according to Aquinas, the good is the ultimate goal of human actions. For human actions to achieve the good, they must follow the fundamental moral law, in which, according to the natural law theory, it is to do good and to avoid evil. But what must to do good and to avoid evil mean here? For example, if you help someone in need, you are doing something good. If you refrain from insulting your classmates or other people when you're angry, you are avoiding evil. Aquinas thought that we as a human beings partake in the eternal law, which means the God's will for creation, in most perfectly, because unlike any other animals or beings, tayong mga tao, nauunawaan natin ang pananaw ng Diyos sa kung ano ang mabuti para sa tao at ginagamit natin ang rason at choice upang sundin ito. For example, Ang mga hayop ay hindi makapag-isip kung ano ang mabuti, and they choose to act in certain ways in which the animals have no option but to follow what their instincts are. Unlike as human beings, we can reflect kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng maayos na pamumuhay bilang isang tao. Therefore, we can reflect on the instincts we have and we can similarly think about our good and bad ways to pursue them. Aquinas describes the natural law, the light of natural reason whereby we discern what is good and what is evil. He also says that this light we have within us allows us to know good from evil, that this light is an imprint on us, which he called the divine light. Therefore, God created us with both reasons and instincts. He believed that by reflecting on our instincts with reason, we could arrive at certain moral rules, which we should follow in our behavior, and these are the precepts of the natural law. This precept is first in the sense that it is most general moral rule. So, we have certain inclinations or tendencies na natural sa atin. They are part of our natures, features of the kind of creatures we are. And by reflecting these inclinations or tendencies, we could arrive at certain moral rules. But Aquinas argued that this is true human reason. Human beings have the unique capability to reason, to be self aware, to think and understand their surroundings and their lives. These reasons unlock our moral knowledge, and we will be able to recognize good, and also we will know how we should live and how we should act. Hence, Aquinas went further that when we use our reason, we notice basic goods. And what are those basic goods? Aquinas distinguished the five basic goods, which he referred to as primary precepts. The primary precepts includes life, reproduction, education, worshiping God, law, and order. Aquinas then goes on to say that natural law continues from the primary precepts into the secondary precepts. We use our reason to further derive our rules, laws, and behaviors in accordance with the basic goods. So the specific laws or behavioral codes are the secondary precepts. The first primary precept is life. The preservation and promotion of life. Our reason has acknowledged that this is a basic good to follow. We then think about murder, and dahil ang pagpatay ay kumikitil ng buhay, it goes against the primary precepts of promoting or preserving life, and so it goes against the natural law. Kaya ang pagpatay ay isang immoral at mali, kaya hindi natin dapat gawin ito. Thus, the second in the primary precepts is reproduction, for the continuation of a human race. But for Aquinas, the reproductive organ is by nature designed to produce and propagate the human species. Hence, any act of intervention that frustrates the very purpose of the reproductive organ is unnatural and thus immoral. This explains why abortions contraceptives is immoral, and therefore this is also why some of the other religions are against into homosexuality and same-sex marriage. Then educating your offspring is also a primary precept, so they will know how to continue the human race, live better lives, and even protect themselves. If we take our children to school, in which it is a place where children go to learn and become educated, school is something that follows the primary precepts and therefore follows the natural law. So the secondary precept is school is good. Finally, worshiping God. Habang sinisikap natin unawain at bigyang kahulugan ang ating buhay, Aquinas saw how we innately seek God. And lastly, law and order. These primary precepts promote justice and allows us to live in a functional, well-maintained society na kung saan ang mga tao ay maaaring lumago, umanlad, at maging ligtas. However, a lot of problems can be raised. If morality is a natural law that God has written into nature, and all humans have the innate ability to reason and discover these laws, then why do people violate the natural law? Humans have violated the natural law, murder, theft, and other horrible crimes. But bakit kung ang lahat ng tao ay nagtataglay ng kakayahang maunawaan ang moralidad if there is so much immorality? Firstly, kailangan nating intindihin ang natural law. And for moral law, kailangan nating tandaan na binabalanse ng Diyos ang mundo ng malayang pagpapasya kung kaya't we are able to physically violate the moral natural law. Because this can be down to human emotion. We as an emotional beings, we do not live by just reason alone. And so sometimes our emotions can get the better of us. It can overpower our reason and lead us to do wrong things and violate the natural law. But we know deep down we shouldn't do it. But that's exactly it is because our reason has been pushed deep down. But there's another issue. How would natural law deal with moral dilemmas? If we are violating a natural law, if it would actually bring out more good. For instance, consider someone who must commit a morally bad action in order to fulfill a morally good action. Let's see about this case of the footbridge dilemma. The person on the bridge can choose to push the large person onto the truck, thereby killing that person. But if he chooses to push the large person, it can potentially stop the train and save the lives of the five people that are down in the truck. So what possible choices he would choose? If he do not push the large person, the five people will die. But if he do push the large person, it can save the five people's lives. However, he is actively killing someone and so it is violating the natural law of life. Well, Aquinas had a response to this, and it refers to the principle of double effect. When we are faced with dilemmas like this, we need to look at the situation. In regards to the footbridge dilemma, he wants to save the life of the five people, and that is good. I would say it is because the primary precepts include the preservation and protecting life. So when he pushed the large person, did he intend to do evil? For me, not really, dahil ang intensyon niya ay iligtas ang buhay ng limang tao, which is good, but he also did not intend to kill the large man because this is not what he set out to do. In this dilemma, pinakita niya rito na binase niya ang kanyang ginawa sa kanyang rason na iligtas ang limang buhay ng tao pero hindi niya intensyon na patayin ito. It was just an unfortunate situation, but the intention was always good. So what he done was morally good, but it just had a bad side effect. So this means it is permissible other than moral law. But still, we're talking about a situation in which the intended action is good and the unintended side effects are violating the natural law. But as a being, we're not intending to violate the natural law, but rather promote them. We can bend in shape and violate the natural law depending on what we think will generate the most good. So, kung hindi tayo naniniwala sa Diyos, we can argue that God created the natural laws for humans and that our moral laws are created within nature. But if we reject the whole concept of God and deny He exists, where does that leave? If the natural law as the whole theory relies on God. So that's it for me to explain the natural law theory for you guys. Pero pakinggan naman natin kung ano ang masasabi ni Mervin Lucero sa natural law theory, and to further understand the natural law theory, let's meet the other members of Group 2 in this video to further discuss the natural law theory.
Hello, I'm Mervin Mendozaho, and today I will be tackling Saint Aquinas' natural law theory. But first, what is natural law theory? Well, natural law, as proposed by Saint Thomas Aquinas, asserts that there are universal principles that are inherent in nature. These principles are accessible through reason that guide individuals towards actions that promote human flourishing and moral virtues. Aiming for societal harmony and ethical decision making, according to natural law, man is good in nature, and the goal of man is to do good, and man is driven by good. Natural law theory also believes that anything that follows the natural law is good, while those that differ are bad. It also believes that evil deeds are unnatural and immoral. An example of this would be in a community planning to build a road through a forest, they consider the natural law theory. They consider the forest has inherent purposes such as providing habitats and preserving the biodiversity. They decided that damaging the forest excessively would go against the natural order and choose a route that minimizes the harm to the environment, aligning with the natural law. Natural law theory also isn't very fond of homosexuality, contraception, abortion, masturbation, or any other sexual act not aimed at procreation is unnatural, which is seen as an evil deed and a sinful and immoral act. They're not a fan of uh, sex before marriage, which is not confined by marriage.
Now let's talk about how does a man understand his nature. So how do you understand your nature? First, let's talk about Aquinas. According to him, he believed that God imbued everyone with the right scope of knowledge to fully tackle about life and understand our nature. And next, we have the reflection. Reflection on one's ideas, feelings, wants, and behaviors, as well as introspection and self-awareness, are often necessary to comprehend one's nature. We believe that we have our own differences. Naniniwala tayo na may kanya-kanya tayong kakayahan, may kanya-kanya tayong paniniwala. And every day, iba't ibang tao yung nakakasama natin, nakakasalumuhan natin. So we have to be aware in each and everyone's beliefs, feelings, and etc. First, we have to know ourselves. Unahin natin ang sarili natin. Alamin mo yung sa sarili mo muna bago sa iba. Kasi, ayun yung pinaka-important. We have to know what we feel. We have to be aware on what are the things we like and we want. And of course, yung mga kakayanan natin sa buhay. So that we can do it to other. Because pakikisama is one of the important thing to do. Kailangan natin malaman ang mga kakayanan natin so that makakuha tayo ng connection to other people. Lalo na sa mga everyday na nakakasama natin. Kasi yun yung pinaka-importante. In addition, it could be entail getting input from others, investigating one's values, beliefs, strengths, and shortcomings, and determining how well this match one's goals and behavior. And, of course, understanding one's nature can also be facilitated by engaging in activities like mindfulness, journaling, therapy, or philosophical investigation. And also, we have the law of nature. Law of nature are discernible by human reason. And of course, human have a natural drive to eat, drink, sleep, and procreate. These actions are in accord with the nature law for species to survive and procreate. And that is how we understand our nature. The most important thing to do is to understand ourselves first, to be aware on what we want and what we feel. Kasi may mga bagay na okay sa atin pero hindi okay sa kanila. May mga bagay na okay sa kanila pero hindi okay sa atin. Kaya kailangan natin maging aware muna sa nararamdaman natin. Kailangan natin malaman yung mga bagay na ayaw pala natin to share with them para malaman nila or kahit iparamdam mo lang sa kanila para lang maging aware sila. Kasi having interaction with other, having connection with other is a good thing. Kailangan natin yan in our daily life. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng mabuhay lang ng nasa iisang kwarto lang na nakakulong na tayo lang yung tao. Kailangan pa rin natin lawakan ang ating pakikisama sa iba. Especially, I am a tourism student. We are a tourism student. And makakasalumuha tayo ng maraming tao.
Hello everyone, my name is Andy, and today we're diving into a moral principle known as the principle of double effect. The principle of double effect is a concept in moral philosophy that deals with morally evaluating actions that have both good and bad consequences, or effects rather. So, for you to understand, let's break it down. So, if I perform an action that have both good and bad consequences, how do I determine if it's morally acceptable? That's where the principle of double effect comes in. It states that an action with both good and bad effects can be morally permissible if certain conditions are met. Mayroon tayong 4 na kondisyon kung saan kailangan natin itong isatisfied upang ang action na to ay makonsidered as morally permissible sa ilalim ng principle of double effect. The origin of the principle can be traced back to the works of the Catholic theologians, such as Thomas Aquinas, who articulated it within the framework of the natural law theory. However, it has since been adopted and adapted by the ethicists of the various religious and philosophical backgrounds. The principle of double effect posits that an action with both good and bad effects can be morally permissible under certain conditions, even if the bad effects are foreseeable. And these conditions typically include, number 1, the nature of the actions. Dito, tinutukoy natin ng action itself, na ang action natin ay kinakailangan maging tama at mabuti, at least maging morally neutral. Sa madaling salita, kailangan na hindi ito lalabag sa ating moral principle. Second is the intention behind the action. Dito naman ay ang taong gumagawa ng action ay kinakailangan na may magandang intensyon while aiming na sa good effects. At habang nag-aim ka sa good effects na ito, ay may nare-recognize ka na mga possibility na bad effects. At ang intention sa likod ng action na ito ay napaka-importante upang ma-determine natin kung ito ba ay isang moral permissibility. Third is the means-end relationship. Dito naman, tinutukoy na ang good effect ay kailangan natin i-achieve nang hindi dahilan ang bad effect. Sa madaling salita, ang bad effect daw ay kinakailangan hindi maging dahilan upang makagawa tayo ng good effect. Instead, the good effect should tended directly, while the bad effect is unintended consequences. Upang mas lalo niyong maunawaan, tayo ay magbibigay ng halimbawa. Unang halimbawa sa isang medical treatment. Administering pain medication sa isang terminally ill patient may have the intended effect of relieving pain, which is ang ating good effect. But may possibility din na magkaroon tayo ng unintended effect of hastening death, which is ang ating bad effect. However, if ang primary intention natin is to relieve pain rather than causing harm, ito ay permissible sa ating principle of double effect. Pangalawang halimbawa natin ay ang self-defense. In a situation where someone is threatened with deadly force and using that force may result in unintended harm or death of the attacker, which is the bad effect. However, the primary intention is to protect oneself or others, which is ang ating good effect. It may be permissible sa ating principle of double effect. Overall, the principle of the double effect provides a framework for morally evaluating complex situations where there is a tension between achieving a good outcome and a potential for causing harm or suffering.
Hi guys, so for today I'll be discussing the principle of double effect, the continuation of discussion of Ms. Ganato. So in this principle, reminds us that ethics is not just all about doing what's right, it's also about understanding complexity of our choices or action. So therefore, we have 4 conditions that must be satisfied for an action to be considered morally permissible under the principle of double effect. So the first one is the nature of the action. The action itself must be morally good or at least morally neutral. In other words, it should not be inherently wrong or prohibited by moral principles. The second one is the intention behind the action. The agent performing the action must have morally good intention, aiming primarily for the good effect while recognizing the possibility of the bad effect. The intention behind this action is crucial, determining its morally permissibility. The third one is the means and relationship. The good effect must not be achieved by the bad effect. In other words, the bad effect should not be means by which good effect is achieved. Instead, the good effect should be directly intended and the bad effect should be unintended consequence. And the last one is the proportionality. This must be proportionate reasons for allowing the bad effect to occur. This means that the good effect must outweigh the bad effect in terms of moral significance. The benefit gained for the good effect should justify tolerating or permitting the bad effect. Those 4 conditions that we considered by applying these principles. And in these principles, we can make more informed and ethically found decisions in challenging situations. By considering factors such as nature of the actions, means and relationship, intentionally and proportionally. And that concludes our lesson on the principle of double effect. And remember that understanding this principle can help us uphold moral integrity in our actions.
Key features of the doctrine of double effect. The doctrine of double effect depends on accepting that intentionally makes a difference to our moral assessment. That is, it trades on a distinction between intended and unintended consequences. Take note that consequentialists may object to this, and it trades on a distinction between intent and foresight, so even if something is certain to happen as a result of your actions, whether or not you intended, the consequence make a difference when it comes to morally assessing your action. And to sum up this principle of double effect, it aims to provide a means to assess controversial actions with both good and bad outcomes. The doctrine was originally introduced by Thomas Aquinas, but modern versions have adapted in somewhat. Current versions of the doctrine tend to apply for conditions which must be met for an act to be considered as permissible under the doctrine. The doctrine relies on the moral significance of intentionality, but this is not uncontroversial, especially for consequentialists. The distinction between foresight and intent is also problematic. So that's all for this topic.
Hi, my name is Isha Nicole P. Hinavia, and today I will be discussing the three elements of human acts. In the context of moral philosophy, particularly as articulated by Immanuel Kant, the three fundamental acts of the human will are often described as: first, objective. This refers to the action itself or what the person is doing. It's the physical act or behavior that the person engages in. Second is the intention, also known as the motive or end. This element concerns the purpose or goal behind this action. It's the reason why the person is performing this particular action. Circumstances are the second. This condition surrounding the action which may affect its moral evaluation. It also includes factors such as time, place, manner, and consequences of the action. These elements are often used to assess the morality or ethicality of human actions in various philosophical and ethical frameworks. Here are the examples of human acts broken into their three elements. Example 1 is helping an elderly person across the street. That's objective. Intention is could be helping the elderly person to show kindness or compassion. It could also be earn a praise or recognition from other people. While the circumstances could include factors such as the weather conditions, if it's raining or if it's hot that day. The location of the street crossing also could be near the busy intersection, and the health and the mobility of the elderly person if they have a difficulty in walking. Let's add another examples, each of this in the context of moral decision making. Objective could also be action itself, devoid of any personal biases or subjective influences. It focuses solely on the action or behavior being performed. Example is donating 100,000 to a local homeless shelter. The intention relates to the motives or reasons behind the actions. It considers the individual purpose or goal in performing the actions. Example is donating 100 to a local homeless shelter with the intention of alleviating suffering and contributing to the well-being of the community. While the circumstances could also refer to the contextual factors surrounding the action, including the situation, environment, and any external influences that may affect the moral evaluation of the action. Example could be donating 100 to a local homeless shelter, during a time of economic hardship and increased demand for services due to a natural disaster or pandemic. In moral philosophy, in the ethical evaluation of an action often considers all three components: the objective action itself, the intentions behind it, and the circumstances surrounding it. That's all. Thank you.
Good day, I am Oliver Esmeria and I will be presenting Catholic Natural Law Principles. Catholic teaching, influenced by natural law, upholds the sanctity of life, procreation, and the marital act. So basically, ang sinasabi dito is yung mga Catholic, hindi sila pumapabor sa contraception and condoms. So, kumbaga ang gusto nilang nangyayari yung mga bagay naturally. Ganun. Sanctity of life. Catholic natural law places a strong emphasis on the intrinsic value and dignity of every human life. All life is considered a gift from God, and human beings are stewards of this gift. So, ang sinasabi dito is lahat ng buhay is regalo ni God. And tayo yung nagko-control sa binigay niya. Kumbaga, tayo yung driver ng kanya-kanya nating mga buhay. Next is, the concept of the sanctity of life is deeply rooted in the belief that all human beings are created in the image and likeness of God, imbuing them with the inherent dignity and worth. Kumbaga, lahat tayo, mga tao is kinreate tayo ni God na may likeness sa Kanya. At kumbaga, naturally, meron tayong dignity tsaka worth. Next is, the sanctity of life principle guides Catholics to uphold the inherent value of each individual and to cultivate a culture of life rooted in love, solidarity, and respect for human dignity. So, yung sanctity of life principle, yun daw yung nag-guide sa mga Catholic na magbigay ng respect sa bawat isa. Kasi lahat tayo pantay-pantay. Next is intrinsic value of human life. The intrinsic value of human life means that every person has worth and dignity simply because they are human, regardless of their characteristics or abilities. So, ayun, basically, lahat tayo, mga tao, kahit anong race mo, sa kagaling, anong lahi mo, pare-pares lang tayo. Parang ganun. Next is Aquinas, a prominent theologian, stressed the intrinsic value of human life, aligning with Catholic doctrine. He argued that human life is sacred and should be safeguarded from conception to natural death. Si Aquinas daw is naniniwala siya na yung buhay is sacred and kumbaga dapat inaalagaan natin to simula pa lang nasa sinapupunan tayo ng nanay natin. Hanggang sa makalabas tayo, tapos hanggang sa mamatay tayo. Aquinas' natural law theory asserts that actions are inherently good or bad based on conformity to God's law. So, ang sinasabi ni Aquinas dito is yung mga ginagawa natin or actions natin is madedetermine if good or bad based sa God's law. So, for example, yung huwag ka magnakaw, di ba galing yun sa Bible? So, masama siya. So, hindi natin siya gagawin.
From Group 2, and I'll be presenting to you the Lesson 8, Procreation and the Marital Act. Introduction of Procreation and the Marital Bond. Natural law within the Catholic context promotes the idea that the primary purpose of sexual intercourse is procreation and strengthening the marital bond. What is the procreation in the marital act? Sa Catholic, yung concept po nila is grounded na siya sa natural law. So, which means, nag-emphasize na yung purpose po ng sexual intercourse is for the strengthening the procreation in the marital bond. So, another concept ng procreation in the marital act is it is deeply rooted sa mga cultural, religious, and beliefs. Also, generally repulse na yung idea ng sexual intimacy, hindi lang siya sa pag-express ng love, tapos pag-strengthening ng bond, it is also the creation of new life. Yung viewpoint nito is ina-emphasize niya yung importance ng role ng pamilya natin para rin sa pagpapalaki ng mga anak natin sa maayos na environment or sa loob ng bahay. Another explanation of procreation in the marital act is kumbaga committed ka na po sa family mo, may obligasyon ka na kailangan mong gampanan bilang magulang or role sa isang family mo, and it is also serve as your role as a parents na mag-create ng caring environment sa family.
Good day everyone, my name is Ashley Nicole Emilia and my topic for this morning is about heteronormative understanding and reproductive function. For heteronormative understanding, natural law theorists argue that sexual relationships are primarily used for procreation and species preservation from a natural law perspective. Also, they contend same-sex relationships from this natural purpose. For reproductive function, natural law theorists argue that this function is tied to marriage. Also, since same-sex couples cannot naturally reproduce, they contend that their unions do not meet the fundamental purpose of marriage within a natural law framework. So, i-explain ko na sa inyo ang pinagkaiba ng heteronormative understanding at ng reproductive function at kung ano ang meaning ng dalawang yon. So, sa heteronormative understanding, sinasabi dito na ang mga natural law theorists daw ay naniniwala na sexual relationships rather, or ang pakikipagtalik lang daw ang tanging solusyon or ang pangunahing ginagamit para makapagbuo ng bata, makapagpaanak, at makapag-preserve ng mga species. Pero, ang mga same-sex couples or mga same-sex relationships ay di sila naniniwala or sumasalungat sila dito. Bakit? Kasi naniniwala sila na pwede din sila mag-procreate or makabuo ng isang offspring. Hindi lang daw kasi sa pakikipagtalik ang solusyon para makabuo ng isang bata or makabuo ng offspring, kasi may mga iba't ibang procedures tayo na pwedeng gawin para makapagbuo ng offspring, katulad na lamang ng IVF or yung in vitro fertilization, IUI or intrauterine insemination, or tinatawag din nating DI or donor insemination. For reproductive function naman, sinasabi daw ng mga natural law theorists na ang reproductive function daw ay kakambal daw or kaakibat ng marriage, since through marriage and sexual contact lang naman daw makakabuo ng isang offspring. Then, since hindi daw makabuo ng isang offspring ang isang same-sex couple, parang wala din dong saysa yung union or yung pagsasama nila, kasi hindi daw nila na-fulfill or hindi nila nagagawa yung purpose talaga ng marriage, which is yung sexual contact or yung pakikipagtalik. Kasi alam naman natin lahat na through sexual contact lang talaga makakabuo na isang offspring. Pero dahil nga maraming procedures na yung lumalabas, yung IVF, yung tinuturok, yung IUI tinuturok siya sa mismong vagina ng babae para doon ipasok yung semen. 'Di ba? Parang nito lang din naman lumabas yung mga procedures na yon. Kaya nung mga last civilization or nung mga past years, mga sinauna is through sexual contact lang naman talaga nagkakaroon ng offspring. Kaya parang yun na din yung pinaka-purpose ng marriage.
Hello, my name is Jenny Ann Gomez and I'm here to discuss to you about the law according to St. Thomas Aquinas. It is important to know that when Aquinas speaks about laws, it's much more than what we think of. Maraming tao ang nag-assume na ang mga batas is just all about commands, obligations, or something that lawyers, judges, and politicians deals with. Pero ayon kay St. Thomas Aquinas, ang batas daw ay iba para sa kanya. So, what is the law according to St. Thomas Aquinas? According to him, law is an ordinance of reason for the common good made by him who has a care for the community, and it is promulgated. Ang pinaparating dito ni St. Thomas Aquinas is that law is not just about commandments and obligations, but rather ginaguide tayo ng law sa actions natin to make sure na laging tama at para sa common good ang ginagawa natin. Ano nga ba ang common good? A good example for this is kapag naglalaro ng basketball. A good player won't insist on taking every shot. Ipapasa niya ang bola para makascore yung teammates niya, kasi yung goal niya is mag-win yung team nila, at kapag nanalo yung team nila, it will be a victory not just for him but also for all his other teammates. So in the end, lahat panalo at walang hindi masaya kasi nakuha na nila yung gusto nila. It's a good of a radically different kind because it is an end, and it can be shared by many without loss or diminishment. In a certain sense, the common good is the explanation of why a law exists and what's it doing. So, in according sa sinabi ni Aquinas, para sa kanya ang batas daw ay kapag gagawa ka ng actions, ay hindi lamang ikaw ang makikinabang nito kundi marami din. Law is an ordering based on reason for the sake of and directing the community towards the common good and final end of all that is. So now, let us move on to the four types of laws according to Aquinas. The first is eternal law or the designer's plan. Eternal law refers to what God's will for creation, how each participant in it is intended to return to Him. Given our limitations, we cannot grasp the fullness of the eternal law. Nevertheless, it is not completely opaque to us. Eternal law is at the highest level and represents the divine and unchanging order established by God. It is ultimate source of all laws and principles in the universe. Nagsimula si Aquinas sa divine God na hindi lang creator of the universe but is also its end, the source of its order and who governs it by His providential plan. So lahat ng ginagawa daw ni God ay may sari-sariling nature kung ano ba dapat ang gagawin nila sa mundo. At kung ano yung pinlan ni God para sa kanila ay ayun na yung nature nila forever. And that's what makes it eternal. And so, St. Thomas Aquinas called this as eternal law. Naniniwala si Aquinas na ang eternal law daw ay hindi lang nasa isip ni God kundi sa mga things na ginagawa din niya. So for example, plants. Pinlano ni God na ang mga plants daw beginning from seeds then to tubo at magbubunga sila at matutuyot at mamamatay and so on. Because God has created all things according to a plan, so they will tend to their perfection and fulfillment precisely as the kinds of things they are according to the natures God has given them. Another example for this is how God's created dogs. Ang mga dogs daw ay tahol lang tahol kasi nasa nature na nila yon na ibinigay ni God. Hindi na nila iniisip kung bakit sila nananahol kasi instinct or nature na nila yon. Kaya naman once na nagawa na ni God ang isang bagay, for eternal na siya. And that's what makes it eternal law.
Good day again, everyone. I am Ashley Nicole Emilia again. And my topic naman for this time is about human law. Human law is also called a positive law. It is the lowest tier of law, represents laws created by human societies, governments, and legal systems. Goes against what nature inclined us toward. It is not properly speaking a law. These laws are based on natural law principles but can vary from one society to another. They are man-made. Since human law nga, they are man-made. So, i-explain ko lang sa inyo para mas maintindihan niyo pa yung ibig sabihin ng human law. So, ang human law daw ay mga batas na gawa ng isang tao. Kadalasan daw, ang gumagawa ng mga batas na ito ay yung mga nakakataas, which is yung government or yung gobyerno, at yung mga legal systems. Ang mga batas na ito daw ay base sa mga principles ng natural law or yung prinsipyo ng natural law, pero maaari siyang malipat from one society to another. So, ibig sabihin, kapag may tinatag na law sa society na to, malilipat siya sa ibang society. Hanggat sa lumipat pa siya sa ibang society. Ganun siya. So, ang human law nga daw ay sinatawag din na positive law. Bakit nga ba siya tinatawag na positive law? According to Wikipedia, tinatawag ito na positive law dahil ito ay human-made or gawa ng tao. Also, positive law daw ito dahil ang mga batas na ito daw ay particularly para sa rights ng isang tao or para sa rights nating lahat. Examples na lamang neto or examples na lamang ng human law are right to liberty or yung freedom, right to equality, gender equality man yan, or what, basta kahit anong equality. And no discrimination such as racism, yung mga ganong mga discrimination, like yung discrimination sa women, discrimination sa men, mga ganon. Yun.
Present day. So I'm Chris Escobar. I'm here to discuss what is natural law and divine law. So first, let's start on divine law. Divine law is derived from eternal and represents specific commands and guidance given by God to humans being. It includes the religious scriptures, commandments, and teachings that shape religious morality. According to my research, divine laws are those that God has, in His grace, seen fit to give us are those mysteries, those rules given by God, which we find in scriptures. For example, the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall make no idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet." Now, let's move on natural law. Natural law is the moral and ethical principles derived from the rational understanding of eternal and divine law. It is accessible to human reasons, conscience, and serve as guides for human behavior in harmony with the divine order. And according to my research, ang natural law ay batas at isang teorya na nagpapahiwatig na ang isang mga karapatan o ilang mga karapatan, mga halaga inherent sa pamamagitan ng katangian ng kalikasan ng tao at maaking kapanipaniwalang maunawaan ng pamamagitan ng mga tao dahil ito ay mga batas na ito ay walang pagbabago at hindi maaaring baguhin, na nagsisilbing bilang isang batayan para sa moralidad at katuwiran sa buong kasaysayan ng tao. For an example, the right to life, pursuit of happiness, family bonds, property ownerships, self-defense, truth-telling, religious freedom, reproduction right. And now, to conclude, the divine law is made by God and apart from revelation is known by God. Natural law, on the other hand, is made by God but known or knowable by man. It is the part of God's law which man can know by himself by the natural light of reason. And that will be all. Thank you for listening.